All right, hi everybody. We're going to move into the next panel now. So my name is Corey Rowe. I'm the Vice President on TRU's Board of Directors. And I'm also on the Policy Committee for TRU. And if there's one thing I know how to do as a transit rider, is how to keep an eye on the time and how to move quickly. So we're going to get right into it. So we have a panel of 5 transit agency leaders that we're going to be talking to. So if they're here, if they want to come up to the stage so I can introduce them, go ahead and come on up.
Just keep going while they come up.
All right. So the 5 panelists we're going to have tonight are going to be the Interim Director of DDOT, Michael Staley, the Director of the Regional Transit Authority, Ben Stupka, the General Manager of DTC, which operates the Fleet Mover, Cramer, the Deputy General Manager of SMART, Tiffany, Gunter, and President of the QLINE, Lisa Nuskowski. Everybody, please welcome our panel.
All right. Steve's still warm from our legislators there. Thank you guys so much for being here. As I noted, in past States of Transit events, we've asked each of you to do a whole presentation, sharing much more in-depth updates. We won't have a chance to do that, but I think everyone will agree having a legislator speak was probably worthwhile, huh? They were pretty amazing. But I would love to hear from each of you. If you can start by sharing a little bit about what's 1 or 2 of the accomplishments of the past year that you're most proud of, or what's some progress that your agency has made over the last year?
I guess I'll go first. So at the People Mover, I think over the last year, it's been about getting things moving again. We opened the year before after a shutdown during the pandemic. We had some changes in staffing, a lot of things kind of getting back up to speed. And so just really proud of kind of getting back to basics for the People Mover over the last year. We had a good year of getting projects moving that hopefully here in the first couple of quarters of this year we'll really start to see and feel a lot of differences. And obviously going this year fare-free is something we're really excited about and are already starting to see some of those results.
I think we really started to see the payoffs for all the investments that we've made in the QLINE since we restarted passenger service in fall of 2021. So many of you probably heard me talk about the implementation of the dedicated transit lane in front of Little Caesars Arena, which is not only for the streetcar but also buses to use during heavy event traffic. We see far fewer blockages as a result of that. The implementation of signal prioritization, which has facilitated the movement of streetcars through intersections more quickly and in places where we have to change lanes to call for those signals a little bit faster. And then you add that up with us not charging fare since we restarted passenger service, I think results in the big win of having over 1 million riders in 2023. So that was very exciting. The first time since pre-pandemic and outpacing sort of recovery in transit ridership in post-pandemic and in other communities, and so we're really excited for what that means for transit and what it means for other partners up here, and looking forward to more good things to come this year.
Thank you, Lisa. That is a big deal. Trying to pare down the list to what we're most proud of, I'd say having 2 of our 4 contracts ratified at the end of last year was a very big deal for us, and we continue to move forward at a pretty quick clip on the next 2, our operators and our mechanics. I think that the kickoff of the Drive a Bus With Us event last year was another big deal for us in terms of recruitment. We know that the driver shortage is a nationwide problem, and we're doing everything that we can to really address that. While we were initially somewhat disappointed in the results of the Drive a Bus With Us event because we didn't see a huge turnout, what we are seeing is the consistent effort being applied, having the hiring events, doing them on site, being at the terminals, and consistently getting the message out there is starting to show proof of the good work that we're doing, and we're seeing a turnaround in the driver shortage, and we're really happy about that. The last one and the biggest one, I think that we were really loud about, was the expansion of the 740 into Wixom, and seeing that we're not only
Thank you. So for the RTA big wins last year, we saw continued ridership increase on the D2A2 service. We still have some more room to grow there, but seeing 50 to 75% increase every month on that service. We were able to distribute $13 million out to dozens of small providers through our 5310 program. These are providers that provide services for seniors and people with disabilities and communities throughout the region, so we were able to do that. Last year, we were able to work on a large federal grant application that Zach mentioned earlier. The wonderful thing about that application is that we worked with every person up here, every legislator that was up here. We had almost 70 letters of support. Drew was a huge advocate for putting this together. We were able to leverage some of the state money that was put in the budget last year, so we're just kind of sitting on pins and needles, waiting to hear back on that. And then I'd say the other big thing for the RTA, we staffed up quite a bit. We doubled our staff. We're still a small staff, but a powerful staff. A lot of them are here tonight. I won't make you guys raise your hands, but you can look at their name tags. And we got a new board chair, our first new board chair since the inception of the RTA. So a lot of new energy at the RTA, and really looking forward to a big 2024.
First and foremost, the increased wages for the TEOs, $3 across the board increase, as well as a $500 increase in the attendance incentive bonus. I think it's a rare opportunity where $6,000 to $8,000 can really have an impact on quality of life of some individuals. And I know that there are advocates in the audience that were strong backers of that initiative, so that's much appreciated. Second would be the beginning of the demolition and ultimately construction on the Coolidge terminal. Third would be the first modest steps on BRT on East Jefferson, and last but not least is the turnaround paratransit. DDOT brought paratransit, the critical operational functions, reservation, scheduling, dispatch, in-house in January of 2023, and by the end of the year, on-time performance had gone from mid-80s to 97%. Customer complaints are less than 0.1%. Accidents, injuries are down, and overall, the quality of the service being provided under the Americans with Disabilities Act took a huge step forward.
Clearly, these guys have a lot going on, and those are just a few of the highlights. I'm sure there's obviously a lot of work and a lot of stories and a lot of excitement around each of those. I would like to invite you to also share what's one of your biggest challenges. What's one of your biggest challenges, and what are you doing to solve it? And are there things that allies and supporters can do to help tackle those challenges?
I think the biggest one, the first one that I confronted was the driver shortage, which is pretty typical throughout the United States, and also the shortage of mechanics. So, been in the business about 40 years, haven't learned much, but I understand that if you don't have drivers, you don't have vehicles, you don't have service. So really the driver deficit, which was anywhere in the neighborhood of about 150 TEOs that we were down. Mechanics, about a third of the positions were not filled. Those are two of the biggest challenges.
So for the RTA, I really like the pyramid that Megan did earlier. So our challenge is trying to balance the very real needs that the director talked about, and I'm sure Tiffany and others will talk about, the very real needs of the services that are out there today, with some of the aspirational projects that we need to move forward as a region. So how do we strike that balance? How do we hold a coalition together that doesn't just include folks in this room and folks in the state legislature, but other providers, other chambers of commerce and all other kinds of folks folks who want to, see light rail when we're struggling to get buses out on the street every day. When I'm happy to talk to anybody about how the airport service actually gets set up. Cleo's here today. He can talk to you about how hard it is to get a bus shelter done. So just the reality of getting these projects implemented, but having to continue to kind of carry that torch. I don't think it's a challenge. I think it's an opportunity. I think it's wonderful to be able to do that, and I'd love to be able to do it. But always trying to balance those two things. How do we kind of look to the future, but keep our feet firmly planted in the realities of today?
Thanks, Ben. In looking at the challenges, I'd say there's a couple things. One, Senator McMurrow, sitting here just a moment ago, said that transit investment is economic development, and that conversation about changing the perception of transit, while we are all chewing bubble gum, tying shoes, walking, flying, and everything else you can imagine all at the same time, really helping those that aren't inside of our echo chamber understand the importance of what we do and how it affects their lives just the same, is one of the biggest challenges I see that we have in this region, is making sure others outside of us understand it. Obviously, on the hiring side, just last week we were in D.C. lobbying on behalf of transit in general, and one of the things is breaking down the barriers to hiring for our operators. What we do know is we have two big things that are standing in the way of greater progress, and that is one, the substance abuse testing requirement and the CDL requirement that we have for our drivers. What we see in the substance abuse space is the Department of Health and Human Services has been sitting on a Federal Register document since 2019 that allows for an oral fluid test that's a 72-hour look back versus a 45 to 60-day look back in a urine test. What we are finding is, and we recruit everywhere, we are shameless about recruiting. If we're grocery shopping, if we're in a hobby store, if we're walking our dog, we are hiring. And what we're hearing from people is they do enjoy what is considered legal in the state from time to time, and they won't even apply for a job with us because they can't pass that test. That is a barrier. We're trying to help move that forward, and our Michigan delegation has been very supportive of that. So that's something that we're, regardless of politics, we want people to work. And the CDL test requirement, I won't get into too much detail, I know we're limited on time, but really looking at what's meant for an over-the-road truck driver and what's meant for a bus operator. And so we have a pipeline where oftentimes we find that we train people and then we send them off to do another job in the private sector, and that's not helpful to our industry, and we need to make sure that we're not so blind that we're not moving that agenda forward, at least stopping the drum where possible. So the operator side is true, and then on the sobering side is what we saw last year sitting at the same event. I was very new to SMART at the time. I think me and Robert had just exchanged the space when I was sitting before this panel before. We didn't have a team that I would say was an executive leadership team at the time. So we have a very new team. And what we're finding is when we hear at the board table from the advocates and from the public, they don't feel that there's a sense of urgency. You all have heard about the duck, right? And it may look cool up top, but it's working real hard, and that's the stuff that you don't see. And on the operations side, what I'll share with you is our team is now spending time in the terminals at the time of pullout. So we understand exactly what's happening. So when we're looking at operational efficiency to try to get us there on time, we manage by observation. We are there. We understand the impact that we have when we miss a run. That can affect somebody's life in a way that is greater than what we would experience and just, hearing from the public. I love public engagement. It keeps you honest. It gets you out of your echo chamber, and it makes you accountable. So as much as you may see sometimes that Megan and I fight, we've been doing this for 20 years. She knows I appreciate making sure that we're hearing outside of ourselves what needs to be done, because we do take it seriously, and it is a sense of urgency about it.
Yeah, I think for us, a lot of it is sort of boiling down to brass tacks issues, which we are in the most challenging part of the year for our operations, which is snow, and not necessarily as it's falling, but once it's fallen and then it gets plowed into the roadway and onto the tracks or into parking spots, and people are trying to wedge their vehicles into parking spots and hanging over the white line. So unfortunately, we're still spending a lot of time working with our partners at the city and the state on troubleshooting that. You would think after 6-7 years we would have gotten that down, but we're still working on that. But for me, and then also working with our partners like Transit Police of the City of Detroit. I know Chief Ricky Brown's here in the office. Have been very helpful with getting the streetcars moving as quickly as possible in those situations. But I think we've also, on the other hand, we know some of the treatments that can help solve for that. And I think that the dedicated transit lanes, just creating more space for transit to operate unimpeded, because buses get impacted by this as well. And so I think creating more space on our public roadways, which we have a lot of capacity. I know we think we have traffic here in Detroit, but we don't really have traffic in Detroit if you travel to other cities. And so I think using some of that capacity and dedicating that for transit only, not only facilitates movement for our passengers, but it also sends a message to everybody else who's using the roadways that, hey, transit is important. And I think kind of feeding into the previous panel's discussion was people need to hear from us. And so those who are operating, those who are riding, those who are advocating, I think that's another really powerful way to send a message to the general public that transit deserves space on the roads just like everyone else. So.
Okay, so one of the things that I really like about working at the People Mover is there seems to be a lot more puns available, so I really appreciate that. And I think Megan kind of set me up. So the top of her pyramid, which of course our system is above everyone else. Take that for no one else. Also included interesting art, I believe was up there. High frequencies, yeah, so those are all things we have going for us. We also don't have any drivers, so don't have a problem with that. I don't have any snow, I don't have any traffic. I have a dedicated guideway. So a lot of the challenges of my fellow transit providers we don't have to deal with. But the challenge for us, I think, really is how can we, and this is kind of something we try to work for every day at the People Mover at DTC in general, which includes Transit Police. Double shout out to Chief Ricky Brown. Is how can we contribute positively to the experience, right? So that can be people who are visiting downtown, can be people who live downtown, people who are using downtown to connect to other modes of transit, to get to the airports, to go to Ann Arbor, but also to connect people who live in the city and people who live outside of the city, connecting them together. I think Senator Irwin had a great, if you connect people, good things will happen. I made a note of that one. That was a really good quote. And so our challenge, which is kind of funny almost, is that we're here, and it's about how do we make people aware of how we can connect them using the People Mover and the resources that we have downtown. But I think from a bigger challenge standpoint, maybe again it's kind of just a different perspective, a little bit for me personally, but also at the People Mover is I still think there are more opportunities and challenges for all of us, and to have state elected officials here, our infrastructure office leader. I think there's still, the challenge still is how can we work more closely together. I really still think that there's a lot of opportunity for that. Again, maybe it's just the People Mover because we're kind of like the ugly duckling at the back sometimes. But we're here, and I think really everyone, including us, I'm committed, I know all of you are, to really keep pushing for all of us to work together better, because I really think that's the way for us to be successful.
Excellent. And again, the time goes by way too fast. I will say, I'm working with each of these guys to arrange a Transit Tuesday talk like we did before, a focused conversation with just one or two agencies so we can go into a much deeper dive on all of the amazing things that you guys are doing. But in the few minutes we have left, what's coming up? What are you looking forward to? What's happening? And I think we touched on it a little bit, but are there ways that we can be working together and supporting each other to achieve great things?
So from the People Mover, kind of back to my first comments, is this is our big time to shine, right? So a lot of what we talk about is regional. We can't be any bigger than our 3-mile loop, which sometimes is good, sometimes is bad. But the draft is coming, which is a huge event for downtown, the city, the region, the state, maybe the Midwest even. And so that's something that we are laser focused on, not just internally, making sure that our technology improvements, you're going to see stuff at the stations that's going to be more safe and reliable, but also have more information when the train's coming, when the QLINE's coming, if it's near our station. We're working on having that as well. But really, from a bigger perspective, with free fares, it's just helping make the region shine. And that really, there's a lot of efforts around the draft to have better coordination at all levels, whether it's with law enforcement, city services, regional connections, transit providers. I think this is really a great opportunity, but to keep the momentum going after that, I think is what's the most important thing.
Yeah, I would echo that about the draft, and I think I see 2024 as a year of partnerships. And to Robert's point, I think that we're all very much in the conversation of how we can provide more and better service for the draft and to continue that beyond. So not just have it be for 3 days or a week while a bunch of people are in town, but how can we use strategies like park and ride and apply them more broadly to get people to use transit and really kind of use that as a focal point. So I think that the partnerships that you see up here, know that we're working on those issues outside of these conversations here. Other partnerships, I would say internally, we're renegotiating our contract with the union as well this year, and we're very fortunate to have those relationships and excited to move that process forward. They represent all of our streetcar operators and our mechanics at the QLINE. And then I'd be remiss to say, exploring the partnerships with the RTA. We announced in December that the intention for the QLINE was always for it to be part of a public entity, because we're currently a nonprofit organization and we cannot take advantage of the federal operating dollars that exist to operate public transit. And so us becoming a part of a public entity has always been a part of the plan, and we are now at that point in the road where we're exploring that relationship with the RTA. And so excited to continue exploring that partnership to come.
Fantastic. Let's see. So where do I begin? Just last week at our board meeting, we took an action that I think was very significant that I want to share with everyone, and that was we amended our budget so that we would be able to fund our pension liability at 95% and our OPEB for us, and a critical move in order for us to sustain what we consider to be the most historic wage increases we have on the table right now for the long term. We are freeing up $11 million in operating a year that we were putting towards our pension liabilities that we now will not have to do going forward, so we can use that for greater things such as wages, so we can be an attractive employer. That's number one. Number two, let's see if I can get to the next thing. I got to work on my memory. We got new service that started at the beginning of this year. The 280 in Romulus connecting the business district is now in service. We're seeing some good things at the start of that service in Wayne County. We started the 561, but we extended the 561 Chesterfield to New Baltimore as well. And we have on the horizon the Rochester line, the 492 coming, and plan for it. Part of the reason we are spending our time in the terminals is make sure that we can make pullouts and get all of our service on time, but definitely have a good kickoff for that. I'll say a couple other things. We hired a general planning consultant at the end of last year. We now have a scope ready to move forward on our bus stop inventory, and that's really looking at almost 6,000 stops throughout the region and creating standards for those stops, really looking at them, making it so what we see and what we experience, even when we did the tour on the 740, was people didn't know how to use the bus. The stops aren't always right across the street from each other. As much as you can simplify usage of the system, we should. So with that, I'll try to wrap up. I'm trying to think if there's something. We are developing, in conjunction with our partners, a scope for a mobile app that will allow folks to, again, increase user friendliness on the transit system. That will definitely change the narrative. We know that when people can use this little device for their banking needs, for their email communications and everything else, your shopping, everything you can think of, if we can get it so that they can plan for, pay for, and get to their trip on this mobile device easily, we know that we have done ourselves a great service in changing the narrative on public transportation. Looking at Bernard, I think I hit everything, but I'm going to move on because we only got so much time.
Okay, let's see, I totally have my notes right there. I'm just going to see if I can channel them. Yeah. Okay, so 2024, airport service. Yeah! Woo! All right. We're going to run, trying to get that up and running by the end of March. Okay, good. And before March Madness, and certainly before the draft. So that'll be a pilot project, but we're going to get that up and running. We're still looking for ridership increases for D2A2. We are completing another update to our regional transportation master plan, which I know is not super exciting, but is actually really important to really provide kind of some guidance for what we want to see in terms of investments and priorities here in the region. So that's going to our board in 2 weeks from now. We're going to be updating what we call the Coordinated Human Service Transportation Plan. I did not name that. That's what the federal government calls it. This is, don't make me say that acronym. This is the plan that informs how we want to prioritize services for seniors and people with disabilities. So we're going to be working on that this year. We're going to be deploying towards the end of the year our first Access to Transit grant program. So this is a program focused on pedestrian and bicycle safety and shelters in and around bus stops. I will tell anybody that listens that I completely and totally stole this idea from the Chicago RTA, who's been doing it for almost a decade. So I was able to use that to convince some of our partners at SEMCOG and others to provide us some funding to be able to do that program. So we'll be launching that towards the end of the year. We're exploring our partnership with the QLINE. So that's a big piece of business we have going on. I know I'm forgetting something. Our mobility wallet pilot project. So this is a project that we got some funding from the state to do to look at having a booking app available for paying for multiple transit providers throughout the region. So yay, thanks. It's kind of a cool project. We're working with, specifically with United Way Southeast Michigan and Detroit at work to pilot this service for folks who are using those services. So we're really having a job focus on that mobility wallet project. Am I forgetting anything? Anybody? Good, I got a thumbs up. Good, all right. I'm sure there's a ton more. Yeah, I got a ton more. And again, waiting on that grant and just waiting. So if anybody knows anybody and wants to give a call to their elected officials, please do so. Thank you.
Two-pronged approach at DDOT for 2024. Back to basics and forward to the future. DDOT has to become safer, more reliable, and more customer-oriented. And so people in this audience, the larger general public, our ridership, as Tiffany said, we value the input. The conversations aren't always the most comfortable, but we need to get that feedback, that input, to let us know where we're meeting your expectations and even more importantly, where we're not. DDOT Reimagine, we've got the final draft. We're going to take advantage of the February community input meeting to turn that into a public hearing on DDOT Reimagine. There'll be details on the plan on the website beginning day after tomorrow, February 1st. So you can see a preview of coming attractions there. And then on the 15th, we'll hold the public hearing on DDOT Reimagine. And obviously, input from everybody in this audience and beyond is critical. State Fair becomes operational spring of 2024. And finally, on the paratransit front, same-day service through a grant from the RTA. We hope that will be operational no later than July 1st of 2024. Give people the opportunity to wake up on any given day, or if they get a call from their doctor's office saying their appointment's been changed, wake up, make a phone call, and get picked up in a reasonable period of time on a same-day basis. Also, the introduction of IVR technology again from a grant through the RTA, so that night before, if you're scheduled to travel the next day, you'll get advance notice that you've got a trip coming up the next day, and then even more importantly, in real time, 15 to 20 minutes in advance of your pickup, you'll get a notification that the vehicle's on its way. You're the next pickup. One of the things that we hope that IVR technology will do is obviously cut down on the need for "Where's my ride" calls. So if we could reduce the call volume into the call center, which handles both reservations and "Where's my ride" calls, that the hold time for customers will decrease, and that'll improve the quality of the experience when they're interacting with the call center.
Clearly a ton of great stuff happening. Give a round of applause to this wonderful panel.
Sorry, I was going to say this. I just want to say really quickly.
Yes.
We are all, I think I'm speaking to everybody, we are all actively working with the Transit Caucus and with the state legislature. So all the folks that you heard up here, we are actively working with those folks to help make those changes, help talk to our riders and our constituents and work with them to make those positive changes. So that's, I know, heavy on all of our agendas this year as well.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for fitting time in to push for that legislative support, as we are all doing. So, yeah, another quick thank you to these riders, or to these